Now. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm thrilled. I'm especially excited about personal branding because we all need it, especially right now. And if those of you who caught the conversation with Peter, we're talking about how to look good on Zoom, which he'll talk about, which is part of the personal branding idea. So just some housekeeping. Peter will speak for about 35 minutes. Then we'll open up to discussion and questions. So please use the chat. Often people like to use the chat while the conversation's going on to make comments. But if you have questions, that just put them in the chat and I'll take people in their order of questions. And as much as possible, unless you have a technical problem, I and the speaker would appreciate if you could turn on your camera. Having done webinars, it's really hard as the speaker to get motivated when all you're looking at is like a blank box. So this is all about making a connection. And if we're talking about personal branding, then you should show yourself. So thank you so much. Happy to welcome Peter. I'll just do a very brief introduction. We met through another fantastic marketer, and I was talking about these sessions. He said, you must speak with Peter. And when I met Peter, I understood why he said that. He is a lifelong marketer working for some of the biggest brands, was leading marketing for Smuckers, Kellogg, J&J, Nestle, and then got his start in the same place I did in the advertising business, where branding is what it's all about. And I guess about 3 years ago, Peter, you decided to take all your experience and go out on your own and share it with brands, companies, and people like us. So a wealth of experience. Happy to have you here. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for the kind introduction. Thank you and the Mandrake team for hosting and organizing this great event and having me as a guest speaker. So I'm honored. I also want to make sure I thank each and every one of the people in our audience. To you who is watching today, I want to thank you for giving us 1 hour of your very busy day. And I hope that you find this presentation not only interesting, but useful for you. I hope that you leave this meeting with something practical, with an idea, maybe an insight, a concept that you can immediately apply to your personal brand, to the way you introduce yourself for impact, and make this a way to get you closer to what you want, to make sure that you achieve your objectives. So that's the idea today. In order to do this, I would like to invite you, each one of you watching, I'd like you to make this in a conversation. So make sure that you go to the chat room, go there and share with us, why are you here? Why did you decide to invest this hour of your life listening to me? I would love to know what's your expectation. So write down 1 or 2 lines. We would love to hear you. And as we go through the presentation today, make sure that you share your thoughts with us. If you agree, great. If you disagree with something, that's great. If you want to share your own perspective, we would like to welcome that because this is, we're a big group and we want to make sure that everyone feels integrated, feels taken into account. And I want you to know that your opinion counts and is very valuable for me and for Deborah and for everyone. The other thing is, as long there's only one house rule that I'm going to ask you to follow. You will see a lot of things today. This is a very condensed version of a much larger program and webinar. So make sure that you take notes. I think that you're going to find a number of things that you would like to just write down some ideas. And make sure that as we go, you apply it to your own personal situation. I'm going to share some examples. I'm going to share some ideas, but make sure that you say, oh, how does this apply to me? How am I doing this? What did I do in this situation? And just write it down because that's going to be helpful for you as you go back later today or down a few days and reflect on this conversation today. So make sure that you do that. And your questions are very important. So make sure that you write down your questions, post them on the Q&A window, and Deborah and I will make every effort to answer as many as possible at the end of this presentation, which, as Deborah said, will go for about 35 minutes. I want to make sure that we have enough time to connect. Okay, does that sound like a plan? Can I see some thumbs up? Okay, Thank you. Well, let me share my screen and then we're going to get started. And I see that some of you are already beginning to share your thoughts. So here to learn about my personal brand. Excellent. That's exactly what we're here to do. And we hope to fulfill your expectations. So we'll be sharing my full screen in 1 second. And you should be able to see my screen now. So give me a thumbs up if you see my screen. Beautiful. So you should see a slide that reads how to introduce yourself, make the right impact, and get what you want. That's the first slide. So I want to welcome to this presentation, which is based on the Brand Me personal branding framework. It is a part of the core program to build your personal brand and increase your impact when you introduce yourself. This session is about helping you and help you accomplish your objectives. I am delighted to take you through a framework that guides professionals like you to introduce yourself using the value of your biggest asset, your personal brand. Executives come to my session for a variety of reasons: to land a new job, perhaps, or to be promoted to an exciting new role, or acquire a new client. They all share the same concern. They are not standing out with the people that can decide on hiring them or buying from them. In this session, you will see how the principles presented here can help you introduce yourself more effectively. These principles are universally applicable to business and social life. Take a moment and think about the last few times that you've met someone. Think if any of the following is happening to you. Let's reflect on this. Do people ask you, tell me more, after you introduce yourself? Do people remember you for reasons relevant to them? Can they easily repeat to others what you say about you? If the answer to any of the above is no, you will find this presentation interesting. So this is a presentation about how to introduce yourself. So allow me to say a little about me. I am Peter Rodriguez. You may have seen me in some of my videos or my LinkedIn posts before coming to this session. And if you're not familiar with me, here is what I would like you to remember about Peter Rodriguez. I wake up sleepy brands. I also help people and companies find new growth, the new growth that they want, with blueprints of my know-how for brand management. Blueprints that are simple, proven to work in real life, and ready to use to solve brand marketing problems. I am also the creator of the Brand Me personal branding program and webinar that helps people build their personal brand and introduce themselves effectively. The reason why the Brand Me and my other frameworks are helpful to many people is that I built them with the insight that I acquired over 3 decades running many of the world's best known brands in multinational companies like Pfizer, Nestle, J&J, Smucker, and Kellogg's, and global advertising agencies like J. Walter Thompson and Leo Burnett. But more importantly, from leading dozens of marketing professionals and building multiple marketing teams. Now, I am also the CMO of Brand Inc. and very proudly a chartered marketer certified by the Canadian Marketing Association. Now, how all of this is important to you is that today I am going to share a summary of how to use your personal brand to introduce yourself for greater impact. Okay? So, resonating today is not easy. And actually, it's getting more difficult. We are competing for the attention of people who are bombarded with information from emails, Zoom calls, text messages, apps, phone calls, and more. Now, in a virtual world like this, the ability to use verbal and nonverbal language on a screen in a short time is even more challenging and more critical. Many people introduce themselves in this space in ways that make it very difficult to understand and remember their value, and that works against them. And this is how people miss the opportunity to make their first impression work for them. And people are distracted on top of that. Our attention span keeps decreasing. In just 20 years, it declined from 15 to 6 seconds. When you introduce yourself, anything you say after that first 5-second period is not going to get 100% of your audience's attention unless you capture their imagination, their attention as early as possible. And that's what you're going to see today. The first few seconds are critical to open their minds, to accept more information from you. They will not accept more information from you if you do not open their imagination early. So the elevator speech that we practice so much in our lives is too long for a first introduction. That's something that I'd like you to take away. It's not that it's not good. It is too long for a first introduction. We are in the era of the escalator speech, as my friend Martin Shusha calls it. When you meet someone for the first time, it's like meeting them on an escalator going in the opposite direction. You have a few seconds to capture their imagination in the right way so that they give you their attention for a longer time. When you introduce yourself, don't say very little in too many words, because that way you will have your audience tune out. Get in the escalator speech mindset, penetrate their minds, claim a spot, and open their attention to build a story that helps you make an impact and get what you want. Now, people ask me, why did I incorporate personal branding as part of my marketing practice? I am not a coach, I'm just a simple marketer. Well, it was by learning from my own mistakes and from the success and failure of other people. I noticed that talent and experience are not enough to succeed, that a killer resume is not enough. I observed a correlation between a person's professional success and their ability to instill values and beliefs in others. I started to witness that the principles of brand positioning in the corporate world with the brands that I was running also apply to the success of personal brands. So introducing yourself is pivotal in the moment. It's a pivotal moment to build a new relationship. What do you say when people ask you, tell me about yourself? Just take a moment and think, what do you say when people ask you this question? This is a question that most people dread and very few people master. However, this may be the most important moment in your conversations. Introducing yourself successfully is more than saying how great a corporate employee you are. Some time ago, as an example, I'd like to share an anecdote. I was networking with a CEO. I asked him about his company as part of our conversation. And oh my God, he was very eloquent. He was very articulate about his vision for the company and the potential of his brands and the results of the last quarter. And, it was very exciting to hear him talk about that. So as we followed the conversation, I asked him, tell me about yourself. And then everything stopped. His eloquence was gone. Like most of us, he talked about his role and history in the company. His answer sounded more or less like this: I was so and so for some time. I did X and then I did Y in this role, and things like those. But in reality, nothing that would do justice to his professional value, which was enormous, and nothing that would be compelling. So at the end of the conversation, I asked myself, what did I remember? What can I remember of him as a professional? That he worked in so and so company. So I have seen this situation in hundreds of networking meetings with people in corporate roles today, and it kind of like worries me that I also see that a lot when I meet a lot of people in transition, because this is a moment when you need to be really strong in your presentation. So when you hear me or anyone say, tell me about yourself, it is your opportunity to teach me how to think about you. Please take it. Because if you do not teach me how to think about you as early as possible in our interaction, I will make up my own story about you. And that story will be difficult to change later. If you do not take early control of that story forming in my head, it might not help you achieve what you want from our interaction. So that's why it's so critical. When you do not teach others how to think of you, your profile becomes, let's say, like private label, like a private label product, which is full of generic attributes. It becomes like a commodity. And you don't want your personal profile treated like a commodity. It's like being lost in what I call the sea of sameness. Once there, the only point of difference left for you is price, how much you're going to charge for your services. And that is not a good place to be. So let me ask you, have you tried to build your statement? How many times? Is it working or nothing is happening? If nothing is happening, you're not alone. Writing a concise and powerful statement that matters to an audience is hard to do. It does not happen in 1 hour. Let me tell you that. Do you remember the story about the guy who started a long letter apologizing for not having time to write a short one? Well, this is more or less like that. An effective statement to introduce yourself with impact looks simple. It is designed to be simple. However, people do not see all the work that went into creating that statement. They only see the result. Your introduction statement is like the tip of an iceberg. It is what people see. And a good introduction can get them interested or not in learning more about you. So make sure it's a good introduction, not a poor introduction. So it is the hook that will get people interested in finding more about you and what about you is important to them. Most people use templates that do not work to introduce themselves, and I've seen plenty of them. They give little attention to the structure of the brand statement, which is what holds the entire brand. But why is that? There are a few traps, and maybe let me know in the chat room if you have fallen in any of these traps. These are very real traps that I've seen. Trap number one is wearing only a corporate cloak and nothing underneath. We are always, all of us are wearing a corporate cloak. Our corporate cloak is the name of our company and our title. It is so comfy that we forget to wear something underneath. You hear people say, I am John, the CMO of Company X, or I am Jane, the president of Enterprise Z, and so on. And they miss the opportunity to establish the most important message for them, their personal brand. Don't get me wrong, it's okay to wear the corporate cloak and be proud of it, but you need something that's yours. Because when the corporate cloak is gone, you better have a nice shirt underneath. Don't fall in the trap of complacency, because in a world where you can expect to change companies several times in your career, your corporate cloak will be gone at some point, and your personal brand will be the one thing that will stay with you as you move on. Now, the trap number two is believing that experience and skill are enough to be noticed. And I guess that you probably have seen that in your networking. This is not true. Just like having a great product is not enough to succeed. In a similar way, your experience and skills are not enough to establish your personal brand, your value, and stand out. Avoid this trap. Continue being great at what you do, but also become an expert at teaching others how to think about the value you bring to them. Trap number three is being shy. Speaking about collective success is appropriate in some situations. Expressions like, we did this, we accomplished that. They're great, they're useful to build teamwork and leadership. However, speaking only in we terms is not enough, especially when you want to introduce yourself with impact. It is not about being boastful, and it is not about culture. You need a healthy dose of speaking in first person. Expressions in the line of I am, I do, I make things happen like this, and so forth. They're very important. Avoid the trap of shyness, because shyness can cost you a lot. To better introduce yourself, as you can guess by now, I'm going to ask you to adopt a brand management mindset. Brands are they exist to fulfill dreams, desires, wants that exist in our minds. The better they do this, the more valuable they are. The attributes of corporate brands apply to your personal brand. So let's see why. Number one, a brand is a promise of consistent experience. Consistency is why people trust brands. Your personal brand is also a promise of expected value in every interaction that people have with you. And your promise starts with a good introduction. Number two, brands are a shortcut to understand value. In this case, your value. Brands simplify our lives. When you see or hear the names of Apple, Kellogg's, McDonald's, they act as a shortcut. You can remember in just 1 second the ideas associated with them. Your personal brand works in the same way. It is also a shortcut that reminds people of the benefits and value that you bring to them. Brands are an asset. In fact, the most important asset for a business. For you, your personal brand is the most important asset for your professional career and the foundation of how you introduce yourself. Let the numbers prove my point. The top 100 most valuable brands in the world consistently outperform the stock markets. Why is that? Well, this is because they can, first of all, create demand. And number two, justify a premium price. Your personal brand works in the same way. If it's strong, it will create demand for you by attracting more and better opportunities. And it also justifies your premium price when people hire your services. You're not one more, you are only you. And another point about brands that you need to keep in mind is that brands live in the minds of their target, the most valuable piece of real estate, not on a shelf or on a social media platform or a brand guide. Your personal brand also lives in the minds of the people you want to influence, not on your resume or your LinkedIn profile or anywhere else. Those are only the channels to deliver communication about your brand. The mind of your target is the battleground where you must win. So, with all of this in mind, let's go over the process to build your brand and introduce yourself. The Brand Me framework will be our map. Okay, so let's get going. This is the Brand Me personal branding framework. It is based on 3 pillars. When you learn to use them, you can build more ways to introduce yourself with impact and create the story of your personal brand. And when you become really when you know this really well, then you will be able to do this at a moment's notice. You will be able to pick from the pieces, these 3 pieces, and make a statement that works for your specific meeting at the moment. A powerful personal brand is relevant, distinctive, and purposeful. Those are the 3 things I'd like you to make sure you take away as the 3 pillars. You should always have them in your mind. In this session, we have time to go over a high-level view of the framework and process. If you're interested in making it work for you, for your specific needs, you can attend my full webinar where I explain the steps and process in detail, and I give you a template to get started on your specific case. You can register to attend at brandigniter.ca/webinar. That's brandigniter, all one word, .ca, then the / and the word webinar. There is no charge to attend, but you need to register in advance, and there is a capacity limit. So register at brandigniter.ca/webinar and get your ticket and your password. Now, for your convenience, if you're interested, I will leave the address on my slides, if that's okay. So let's start with the first piece: how to make your brand relevant. Your personal brand is relevant when it matters to your audience, when it is connected to the values that they care about. This can be attraction values like achieving aspirations, dreams, and desires, or rejection values like avoiding fear, uncertainty, risk, and others. When someone in your audience buys from you or hires you, They're buying the state of mind that you promise, not only the product or service you sell. And that's very important to keep in mind. There is no secret to being relevant when you introduce yourself. It is just making sure that you know what your audience cares about. If it is your job to find out what the desired state of mind in your audience is. The best way to define your audience is in a psychographic way, not based on demographics like job title, industry, vertical, or size of company. These are okay, but they're just facts. They don't really help you a lot in finding resonance with people. A psychographic definition gives you insight and an advantage to position yourself. So let's take a deeper look at what this means. The process to define your audience and identify their desired state of mind is discussed in detail in my webinar, as I said. But for now, let's keep in mind that the basic step is identifying a group with similar values. This includes their beliefs, ambitions, desires, fears, opinions, perceptions, wants. You may say, Peter, come on, how am I supposed to know the values of my audience? Well, you ask. You will be amazed how much people will share if you ask the right questions. And that is crucial for you to know. So the purpose of this section is to make your brand relevant by clearly identifying and defining who you're talking to. When you're done, it sounds more or less like this. For you who believe or feel that. Okay? For you who think, believe, or feel that. This is an example of someone, let's call him John, who used to define his target with demographics. And this is actually a real case, but let's just call him John. He said, well, I'm talking to C-level executives in the retail industry. Interesting. This is not bad, but it doesn't help anyone prepare for a great introduction. So generic. There is no insight behind it. That's what I call a demographic definition. Just like a brand, if you define your target this way, you're going to have a hard time selling volumes of a brand like this. Now, let's see what John's psychographic definition would look like. It would look something like this. For you leaders going through major disruption who feel stressed by the decisions you must make and crave to feel supported. This is an insightful view of an audience, how it feels, what's in their mind, and it gives you understanding of their desired state of mind and how you could influence them. That's the most important part. In summary, the first step to make your brand relevant is defining your audience's desired state of mind. And there's a whole process to get there, but that is very important. Let's unpack the second pillar, how to make your brand distinctive. Your brand is distinctive when it offers an unequal value that gets your audience closer to their desired state of mind. Let me say that again. Your brand is distinctive when it offers an unequal value that gets your audience closer to their desired state of mind. I cannot emphasize this enough. You do not need to be unique. People go around telling you, well, you have to be unique. No. You need and must be distinctive. And I'm going to tell you and I'll show you how to do it. It starts with understanding that what makes you distinctive is not what you do. It is how you do things. Your brand is much more than your experience, much bigger than your skills. It is how you make things happen. That is your singularity. When you talk to your audience with a promise that gets them closer to achieving what they want, that is when they take notice of your brand, not before that. In blunt terms, let's say if I am in your audience, in your business audience, I only care about your brand when your how takes me to my desired state of mind. As simple as that. So this is a journey of elevating your professional attributes to benefits. It is good work. It is intense because you're going to go back and look at a ton of things of yourself. For example, let's say that you are very good at analytics. Let's keep talking about John, our fictional John. He's very good at analytics. This sounds great, but it is not distinctive. It is only an attribute, not a benefit. Now, think about your attributes. You may be great at mergers and acquisitions, at buying companies. You might be fantastic at running P&L. Those are fantastic, but they're just attributes. A lot of people only talk about attributes. So remember that the connection is with the relevance. So we're going to talk about how to connect them. How do we make this distinctive? What's missing here when you see this statement, I am good at analytics? What's lacking is that it needs to satisfy a desired state of mind in the audience. From the example I show you from John, his audience is stressed over the decisions they must make. And their desired state of mind is to feel supported when they make decision. Remember? Therefore, this attribute can be expressed as a benefit that gets your audience closer to their desired state of mind. Let's have a look. So instead of saying, I am good at analytics, you express this attribute as a benefit. In this case, it could be something like, I increase confidence in your decisions. Now, this is only one of many potential ways to do it. There are many of them. Like there are a few others. I reduce uncertainty. I make complicated things simple. And there are dozens of ways to say it as a benefit. You must convert all your skills and capabilities into benefits for your audience. There are several sources and questions that help you extract this information about yourself. They're covered in my webinar, but one example is your past performance appraisals. They say something very important. They say what you did, but generally they don't say how you personally made those things happen. So it's time to bring out how you made those things happen. I explain this process to capture this valuable information and build your inventory of attributes and benefits. This is a very important part of your self awareness. So you can find questions when you're done with this process. You can find answers to things like, I am consistently good at ... And you will find a number of ways that you are consistently good at something. I solve these problems, and then a number of things that will come out. I like this one a lot. They need me because. And then you bring out all of the great things that you do that without you wouldn't happen. So when you're done with all this process, then you have a robust list of benefits. And something very interesting will happen. You will start seeing patterns, consistencies, connections that show a blueprint of how only you do certain things. You will be surprised to see how many you find. The next step is then choosing the strongest benefit of all, the one that promises to get your audience closer to their desired state of mind. But by now you have a lot of them. Your top benefit, the most compelling one, is your unequal value proposition. You express this in the format of I am or I do. And this will be followed by, by because I, which provides the reasons to believe in the benefit. You choose your reasons to believe from your long list of benefits and your strongest attributes. In our example, we make this personal brand relevant, John's brand relevant, by and distinctive when we put together the audience's desired state of mind from step 1 and the unique benefit supported by a reason to believe from step 2. And it would look like this. For leaders going through major disruption who feel stressed by the decisions they must make and crave to feel supported, I increase confidence in your decisions because I use advanced analytics that reduce your risk. So you see how it changes from saying I'm good at analytics to something that is both relevant and distinctive for a specific audience? Now I want to know more. about John. You will go through several options. This doesn't come through in 1 hour, as I said. You will go through several options because it comes from a unique place. There's no other place where it comes from except from you. So you have to dig out all of that information. You will have to be mixing different benefits, different reasons to believe until this is optimized. So it takes a little bit of work. Now let's unpack pillar number 3. A powerful brand is purposeful. Your purpose is the fuel that sustains your brand. The most successful brands are the ones that have a strong purpose inside them. This is serious business. And it's also true for your personal brand. Your purpose is the soul inside your brand. It is the reason why you do what you do. The one thing that moves you to set your personal standard high and do your best. It is the energy that keeps you moving forward in good days, but more importantly, in bad days. And the one thing that people will remember of your legacy. At the core, your purpose is grounded in your personal answer to why. Why? It is always visible to you. However, to your audience, it will show in your actions more than in your words. Your purpose is made of the personal values, beliefs, principles, and convictions that make you the professional you are. It is personal in nature. You do not need to openly discuss your purpose with the world. You need to act on it. It will be visible when you go from job to job, from company to company, and it will help you generate momentum. So, how do you define your brand purpose? Ask yourself why you are in your business. You need to go well beyond the financial and professional answers. Why are you in finance? Why are you in sales? Why are you a marketer? Why are you passionate about what you do? Ask yourself why and then ask why again. Every time you have an answer that you think is good enough, ask why again. The more you ask yourself why, you will eventually find the answer, the purpose of your personal brand. In the webinar, you will see more tools to get your purpose. Here are a few examples only. Ask yourself, why is this important to me? Why is my business success important for my life? Why is my work part of my most important dream? So go ahead and write a few ideas or reminders for you to write it in full later. But ask yourself, why is this work important to me? Why my work is part of my important dream? Are they connected at all? And so forth. The output of this section is your manifesto, your personal credo that you need to keep on top of mind. It will guide your decision making as you face opportunities and challenges. Show it in actions more than in words. In this session, I don't go through a detailed example. This is something that I cover more in more detail in the webinar. Now, we have all the components. Let's put it all together. We're going to articulate your personal brand in your positioning statement. Your positioning statement has 5 components. It is best practice to fit all of them in one page. The fewer the words, the better. The first element is for. This is your audience and the situation they're in. The second one is who think, feel, believe that. This is their desired state of mind. The third one is I am or I do. Your most compelling benefit, the one that gets them closer to their desired state of mind. The fourth element is because I. These are the reasons to believe that make your value proposition credible. And the fifth element, I do what I do because. This is your purpose, your big reason to do what you do. Let's use our example on John to visualize what it would look like. It would read like this. For you leaders going through major disruption who feel stressed by the decision you must make and crave to feel supported, I increase your confidence in your decisions because I use advanced analytics that reduce your risk. Okay. And as noted, there's no example on the purpose on this particular page. Now, you have the statement. Now, what do you do with that? You cannot show that to the world. You need to convert that statement in ways that people can easily see and remember, and introduce yourself with impact. Here's how you do it. First of all, you put it in codes, verbal and visual. People remember things better when they're coded, when they're short, when they're very easy to remember. So we're going to do that. You need to pick your codes and use them always, everywhere. But more importantly, keep them simple. So here is an example. Verbal codes. The verbal codes, to build them, take your brand position and statement that we saw before and use it to write several headlines. Each one should be comfortably stated in less than 5 seconds. These headlines will be your 5 second escalator speeches, the lines that will capture your target's audience attention. Then, in the same way, write a few taglines and make a list of the keywords and phrases also based on your statement. You will use these in all your introductions and materials. Get creative, write many. The only rule is that they must be based on your statement and be easy to understand and remember by anyone. Those are the only rules. But then write as many as you want. Let's go back to John in his example. He has his statement and now he wants to introduce himself. So his statement reads, I increase confidence in your decisions. Remember that he chose that would be his most valuable promise. So this is the basis to create his introductions with verbal codes, all of them based on the same core idea. Let's see how this plays out. John is in an introduction and then he's asked, John, tell me about yourself. And then he uses one of his codes, a headline created in advance to introduce himself like this. Hello, I am John. I help people gain confidence when making big decisions. When this is done with the process I took you through, it can capture the audience's attention and spark their curiosity. And it opens the door for John to say more. He can follow his with his reasons to believe in his value proposition. And most of the time, people ask after hearing the first statement, tell me more, or how do you do that? They become curious and then they open the door to hear more and absorb more from you. You see? So this is only one example, but your job after you have your statement ready is to create all of these codes that you can use consistently across every touch point that you have with your audience, just like any brand in the market. Now, the visual codes are just as important. I cover them in more detail in the webinar, in the core program. But for now, keep in mind that selecting shapes and patterns will also help you build immediate recognition for your personal brand. Choose only one, maybe two maximum, but stick to them and then use them everywhere because then it will create repetition. And once you have all this stuff, you can apply your verbal and visual codes across all the materials that your audience sees. There are many of these, and here are only a few. I recommend starting with your escalator speech. The way to think about all of these tools is that they're just tools to create awareness of your brand with your audience, even before you meet them in person. This increases your chances to present yourself with impact. So there's a big menu here. You can see the networking one pager, LinkedIn profile, background picture, your resume itself, your bio. All of them should sync from the same page. Now, as you go on this journey, my advice is be patient. Establishing a brand takes time and consistency. It pays back, believe me. This also applies to your personal brand. And my advice is if you don't have a personal brand, get started now. This is the basis to introduce yourself with more impact and get what you want. You may try to shortcut this by doing something that is more formulaic, but it will be much stronger if it comes from a place where it actually reflects you and connects you to your audience. So my advice is get started now and introduce yourself with more impact, get closer to what you want, and make sure that your personal brand is working for you. So I want to thank you. If you want to learn how this can work for you, register for my upcoming webinar where I provide more details. You can start using the framework to build your personal brand and introduce yourself with impact and get what you want, as I said. Here's where you can register. And I want to thank you for your time. I hope that this session is helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the full webinar. I am excited that I can deliver this information to you, and I would like to turn it back to Deborah now with my big thank you for inviting me to speak today, and to each one of you for tuning in, and I would welcome your questions. So, Deborah.
Thank you. I think we're all going to sign up for this webinar because you've whet our appetite. So, who has questions? I know that there's been some good chat. So, and yes, the recording I will post it on my LinkedIn update probably by the end of the week, but also it'll be on my YouTube channel. So I will just ask Peter one question that came up, and then I'll go to Judy. So Bruno mentioned that it's really hard to limit to the most impactful, I guess you were talking about attributes. So, and that are most powerful versus a list of many attributes and benefits. And I've seen this often, Peter, that people who have a wide range of experience get terrified about narrowing because they go, well, what if I didn't mention this? So they throw everything in.
That's right. And that's a great question. I encounter that a lot. And I myself have fallen into that feeling of, oh my God, what if I don't say what's meaningful? The reality is that in this case, less is more. When you do your homework really well in establishing the mindset and the desired state of mind in your audience, then you can craft the most valuable piece of information that you need to communicate, your benefit. You will have a lot of benefits. And the common mistake that we all make is to say, well, I'm going to talk about these two things. Then you get people not even understanding which one is more important, how to think about you. And that only works against you. Remember, this is about helping and teaching people how to think about you. And if you, the more defined, the more specific you are, the better. Now, that doesn't mean that they will not get to know you better. And as you saw when I started, well, I want you to take away this first. And then if you give me permission, I open for more. And then I open for more. And then I open for more. But you have, as my audience, you have to give me permission to do that. If I just throw it out there and leave it to you to control, then that's when you lose relevance. So my advice is, yeah, you need to make sure that you have all of those benefits ready to go, but make sure that you tell people what they crave to hear for their benefit. They are the audience. Everything you do it for them, because you're going to be, that's how you're going to be relevant. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that really helps. And people have to be very disciplined to, to stop the urge to put it all out there, right? So maybe the thing is also, Peter, that they should be asking more questions up front, not going into this conversation cold.
Indeed, you hit the nail on the head, Deborah. It's I am amazed to see how many people don't do a little bit of intel work on their audience before. Again, adopt the brand manager mindset. A successful brand wouldn't launch if they didn't know exactly what the core audience that they want to appeal to is thinking. What are the big need states, the big desires, wants, dreams, fears, risk that they want to avoid or achieve? So that is very important, because that's the only way that your brand can be relevant. So you need to ask questions. And as I said in my presentation, you would be amazed to see how much people will share if you ask the right questions. Remember when you're meeting with someone, let's say in an interview for a job, it's a two-way conversation. I mean, the best interviews and the times when I have done better in my own personal interviews have been when I have become curious about the person who's interviewing me. So I also ask them, tell me about you. What is important to you? What do you expect to get out of this conversation, other than deciding if I am good or not? I mean, we all know that. but what is important to you? And they will tell you their words will tell you their values, expectations, needs, frustrations, which, by the way, we're all human, and you will find that they're very similar. We all I have had the pleasure to work with people in many global markets, and I am one of the biggest learnings is how similar we are as humans. We share many need states that are the same. So you can prepare for those. You can see, you can imagine what their situation is, and if you do a little bit of understanding in advance of what they are, what they want to achieve in this conversation, then you will be better prepared to use from your entire inventory what's best. So, like in the example, John chose some of his codes that were ready to go at a moment's notice. It's very important to have those ready. So you need to do the homework first. You need to make sure that you have the codes. Don't. This is not something that you can just wing.
Thank you.
Just like
I think that he would have answered, Peter would have answered your question. So I'm going to move to Pierre. If you could ask your question, Pierre, because I think it's very relevant.
Okay, thank you. That was a very insightful session, and there was a lot of great insights. In today's world, since COVID, our world has changed, and my question is, what would you differently in a virtual world versus, like meeting face to face with people, which used to play pretty bigger roles in building your brand. So what would you different in the virtual world?
Thank you, Pierre. That's a great question. It's very relevant to today's environment. The first thing is to make sure that you do not have the ability to impress your image in person. And that is a big statement. You cannot use your nonverbal cues to help you. Now, on the other hand, you have to realize that you have this. I can speak to you right here. I can see your reactions. I can connect with you in ways that probably in person would have been a little different. So, number one, make sure that you present yourself the best that you can, just as if you were meeting people in person. I see a lot of people not doing that. So, people are not making sure that they look their best from a personal and background perspective. So make sure that all of that works for you. Make sure that your signals as you speak go, they're acknowledged. So make sure that people are tuned into you, that they're not doing something else at the same time or multitasking, which happens a lot online. So just make sure that you engage with them. So ask them a question, tell them to comment. What is your reaction to what I'm saying? What do you think to something? So that you get the connection as early as possible. Don't just start a conversation, or let's say if you're pitching for a new job, don't just go and say it. Make sure that people are listening or willing to listen, or they tell you what's in their mind. And then the third thing is to make sure that you wrap it up in a way that people can follow up. So either make sure if you don't have a website, make sure you have one. If you have a blog, make sure that you showcase that, invite people to connect with you on LinkedIn. All of those things that we used to do in with a business card in the past or a resume. Now you need to do them electronically. Make sure that you say, let's stay connected. Here is my invitation. I mean, you can actually, sometimes I do that right on the spot. I said, I'm sending you a LinkedIn invitation. Let's stay connected right in the moment so that you don't lose track or connection with them. The last thing is, I think that even more than ever, Pierre, I think that this is a two-way street. Always. Every networking meeting is a two-way street. Every business meeting is a two-way street thing. And also every interview is a two-way street. So make sure that you tell people, how can I help you? What kind of help do you need? Everyone needs help. All of us. Your interviewer needs help. So by offering that, first of all, you're establishing something beyond just a transactional call. Because if you don't do that, people are going to say, oh, great. It was a great conversation. Then they forget about you. But if you say, how can I help you? And you do it honestly, not just to get business or the job that you're looking for, but just, I mean, I have a lot of things. I have every professional has a ton of experience and a wealth of knowledge that they can share. So let me know how I can help you. And then if you hear something, then you follow up with something. And sometimes I have found that it is as simple as sharing a thought, an article. I read an interesting book. You might find it interesting. And that starts a conversation. My network engages, and I'm very proud of my network, which engages with me frequently on that basis. And that builds your awareness. At the end of the day, I'm going back to being a brand manager of your own brand. You need to continuously feed the interest, the awareness, the desire for your brand. And the only way to do that is to keep it going like this. So I hope that this helps. It's kind of like the same before the pandemic, but now it is just even more important.
Thank you, Peter. We only have a few minutes left. A question from Bruno. Do you recommend developing that 5-second statement that's broad enough to develop interest regardless of the audience, but then you change the benefit party based on the specific discussion?
Yes, that would be one approach that works well, as long as the only caveat is that the broad audience at least shares a common need, a common desire. So you talk to that common desire. So let's say if that happens just like with any brand. If you're selling a cleaning product, you're going to make sure that you talk about cleanliness on the top, okay, and the benefits of cleanliness. I mean, this is just an example, and then add as a reasons to believe or the supplementary benefits. Why is this important for you? But again, it's about how well you know the mind state of the people that you're meeting with.
Okay, thank you. A question from Paul. How do you handle if your personal brand doesn't align with the corporate brand? I guess if you're an employee, right, and you're in conflict there.
That's a great question. And the blunt answer is that maybe you don't align. I mean, two brands that don't align will eventually depart. Mm-hmm. That is the truth. Either you leave them or they leave you. That's because you cannot, you're going to have to go public with this. People need to know. So if you're saying, well, red is the way to go, but your company says blue, at one point, those two are not going to make purple.
Yeah.
They're just going to not connect. So what I would do in these situations, which I have found, is make sure that you create your brand, create a plan on how you're going to share it, and make sure that it doesn't openly contradict or insults your corporate brand. But make sure that you have a way to communicate your brand, your personal brand, because at one point they will not resonate. At one point, you're just preparing the moment when you will have to go in one way and the corporation in a different way. And this is it could be very damaging for the company and you if you don't do that. Just Elon Musk comes to mind, which the impact that his statements from his personal brand has had on his corporate brand. It's a lot of money that was affected. A lot of people were affected. So that's one example.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Peter, like time just went. It's 10:30. How did this happen? Thank you so much. It was amazing. I am going to the webinar for sure. I'll be there. I think most of us will be there. I want to thank you for your time. It was so helpful. It was really great stuff. It's being recorded, so look on my LinkedIn profile and I will upload it there. Peter will upload it to his. And also you can always go to my YouTube channel. All the other sessions are there as well. And Peter should be there by tomorrow or Friday. And I hope you'll come back, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Because this has been fantastic. So
Thank you very much, Deborah. I really value it. Thank you. And thanks to everyone at the Mandrake team. And thanks to everyone for attending. It's been an honor for me. And I hope that you find this helpful for you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.